Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Morton. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the artist and studio manager here at Baltimore Clayworks. We are thrilled that you all have joined us. I would like to acknowledge that I am joining from my office located on Piscataway and Susquehannock land, currently known as Baltimore, Maryland. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual artist talk given today by J. Sallay Carrington. They are the 2023-24 Lormina Salter Fellow. To view more of our virtual content, please visit baltimoreclayworks.org. And I will now turn it over to Jay.
Hi, everyone. My name is J. Sallay Carrington. I'm here from Canada. Vancouver and Montreal are my homes in the last few years. And I just moved here from Seattle, finishing my MFA at University of Washington. And yeah, I'm here working on this big project called Trans Passions, where I was so delighted with so many people who sent in submissions, and they sent me a series of trans people sent me photos of themselves as well as a description of the things they're passionate about. And so I'm going to be sculpting this whole series of trans people based on their passions. And then as well, I have a whole bunch of sample pieces and little demo pieces and whatnot. So I've been very busy in my studio. I thought I'd show a few in progress pieces while I'm in this space playing around. I don't usually use a lot of color. Someone asked me yesterday what was my finishing techniques, and they kind of vary drastically depending on what I'm working on. Here's another. This is one of the first Trans Passions projects. There's a soccer ball that goes under its foot. So this person is passionate about soccer and making music. So it's been so fun reading everyone's descriptions, and there's some super incredible people that I'm really excited to sculpt. So it is, yeah, super fun. There's also this rhino. For one of my classes, I'm teaching making figures with slab, and I started 2 demo pieces because some people were wanting to sculpt people and some people were wanting to sculpt animal bodies. And so this is a sample piece for that class that turned into its own piece. And then over here is another one of the Trans Passions models. This person is passionate about like self-love and exploring themselves and just like, yeah, really knowing themselves deeply and understanding their own just, you know, progression in life, and yeah, a lot of self-love. So they sculpted them with Aphrodite, the god of love. And then these are the sample pieces that still figuring out where they're going. They're rather large. I've never sculpted rhinos before. They're so strange. But yeah, it's been fun being in this new space. And I guess I'll go, I've got a bunch of pottery on this side. I don't know if you can see this one. There's also a smaller version of the huge chameleon I made last year or earlier this year. I figured having something smaller and easier to transport would be great because I had a lot of fun making that piece and would like it to live in more places. That tongue comes out for travel purposes. But then there's also, I've been working on a series of mugs. Got these wood fire kiln here, which is incredible, and I'm so thrilled to have access to that. Those little rabbit-headed mugs. You can see that, okay? And oh yeah, some antlers, some antler handles, and I'm making a lot of test pieces for the chameleon and just having a lot of fun with that texture. So it's fun. Oh, and for those who are at the Raku firing at Firefest, this is how the rabbit turned out. A lot of people saw me take this out of the kiln. It was a very heavy thing to pull out of the Raku kiln, but this is the colors that turned out as. And also a series of teapots, which those will be on my website soon, and one of them is in the teapot exhibition coming up. And you keeping an eye on time? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I figured that's a really quick studio tour. I'll leave a few minutes at the end for questions, but I figured while I'm here, I will do a quick demo of how I have been sculpting with slabs. So normally my figures are, they're built solid and then I cut them up, hollow them out and stick them back together. But when I build larger, it's much easier to build with slabs because that's just so much clay to hollow out. And so I'm going to do a demo of how I build the animal faces with slabs. You can see this gazelle, deer, not sure yet. We're going to see where it goes. That's how I built this piece there. Same with the rhino. And everything else was built from solid for the most part. The tiny rhino is also from slabs. But basically, start with a slab, roll it into a cylinder, slip and score this edge together so that you get this cylinder here. It's better if you work with, if you roll these slabs like a day or two beforehand, so they're a little bit more stiff because if the clay is really wet, when you go to add the face, a lot of it, it'll just collapse and it'll make it a lot harder. So this is pretty stiff slabs, but this is essentially the neck and you want the slab to extend up until vaguely where you think the back of the head or the top of the head is going to be. Next thing you do is always slip and score. And this is going to be the top of the head. So here we go. And if I cut it into a more even shape, that is going to be easier to wrap my mind around it later. I just want to see where exactly it sits. You can see it's going to be forming the top of the head. So I'm adding slip to all the connection points, as well as up there. I'm blending the clay together on the inside, make it bend up a little bit more. And when you're building with slabs, a big thing is that you always have access to the inside of the piece because you're going to be pushing the clay out and pushing it in kind of at a similar rate. I'm going to add some little pieces on the bottom to make sure this doesn't fall down. Yeah, I'm just going to add a piece down there. If there are questions while I'm doing this, someone is welcome to read them out. Yeah, whoever, Kayla or so. I have the top of the face here. It's gonna want to fall forward. So oftentimes what I do is I cut the neck to angle it back a little more. There we go. So it's gonna sit a little bit further back. And then also because this clay is stiff, I can then cut out the hole from the cylinder, which is underside of the face. You can't necessarily see what I'm doing here, but you can kind of see that I just cut a hole on the inside of it. So then I can reach inside and shape it from the inside and the outside. And because the clay is stiff, it's not going to collapse while I do this. So I have the top of the head here. First thing I do always when I'm sculpting faces is line down the middle, do like vaguely where the kind of nose snout is going to be. And then I kind of draw where the eyes are. So this might be a deer. I've been sculpting a lot of deer, antelopes recently, or a wolf. We'll see. Got a long nose, so see where it goes. But okay, so eye sockets, the first thing. I cut that nose down a little bit because it's too long. Cheeks in a little bit. I have these paddles I use a lot. Just I'll smush the clay and compressing it while I'm building, and the compression makes the clay much stronger. So I'm pushing out the brow a little bit more.
Jay, there is a question. I'm sorry.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a question that came through. If you don't mind, I can ask
Yeah,
it.
go.
It says, do you sketch your ideas before you start building, or do you have an image in your head and go from there? What does your process look like?
All of my sculptures are drawn in my sketchbook before I start. I use a lot of reference photos while I'm working, but yeah, typically I'll think of something and then I'll draw it out to kind of help me figure out the position I want things. Yeah, just help me wrap my mind around it. I find sketching really helps. And then I can kind of like sit with it for longer. So right now I'm just adding the bottom of the chin here to help it sit up a little bit better because I can feel it falling forward. So also while I'm sculpting these slab figures, if I sculpt the whole figure and then I move on to the head, I'll usually cut the head off at the neck, put it aside, and then sculpt it from there because it's really hard to do the head while it's on this whole piece up there. The piece will dry out faster. I have to like move around the whole sculpture rather than moving the sculpture around me. So it's a little wonky. There we go. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to put the brow a little bit. Let's do eye sockets. There we go. Okay, I think this is turning into a little bit more of a wolf, so we're gonna go with the wolf angle. So I always keep the top of the head open so that I can reach inside. Really like sculpting with these tools here. There we go. Okay, choose an eyeball. So I get a lot of questions about sculpting eyes. And a couple of things you want to remember is depending on the animal you're sculpting, they're either on the front or the side, if they are prey or predators. Predators, they're on the front because they hunt. Prey, they're on the side because they don't want to be hunted. And so this is going to be a wolf, so I'm going to scooch the eyes a little more to the front and push the cheeks out. I'll put that under there because that is moving around a lot. Can you see? You can see this. And so when I do the eyes, because I want the eyes to live inside of the eyelids and in the eye socket, I always do it like a rather big eye socket so that the eye sits deeper in the skull. Like, you know, our eyebrows typically, depending on the animal, the eyebrows are further outside of the skull than the eyeballs. And so I do the eye inside. Smooth that down a little bit. And then I do the eyebrows, eyelids over top. I always add slip in between. Layers. There we go. Right. Run that down to the bottom a little bit. So that's a really rough eyelid, but you can see even putting that the eyeball first and then the eyelids on top of it, it really makes it look like the eyelids are on top of the eyes, which is what we want because that's the function of an eyelid. I'm gonna do an eyebrow over top of that. I do rather exaggerated eyebrows. I have noticed. So as I push the clay out and I'm pushing it in, But then if I push it out too much, the clay will get really thin. So I typically add extra clay for the eyebrow because I push that out pretty far from the inside. And I'm only gonna do one because it'll take me a while to get the second one even remotely similar. It's a very common thing. It's so hard to get the second one to look just like the first one. Okay. And then cheekbones, I always do some big cheekbones there. So while I'm doing this, I'm usually looking at pictures of whatever animal I'm sculpting. Some of them I've sculpted several times, so I just sort of like figured out as I go, and then I'll look at photos later and adjust things. But yeah, that dog up there, I sculpted it from my memory of a dog, and then I went and looked at a picture of a dog and thought, oh no, this is all wrong. This is more bear than dog. There we go. It's give it a nose. So I've noticed a lot of hunting animals, their top of their nose is always the furthest thing that sticks out, which is not the case for deer and goats and stuff like that. So those are the ones that I've been sculpting the most these days. Their lips stick out the most, and so I kind of was looking at the parts of the body that extend the furthest off of the body while I am sculpting them. No, but you'll be able to see the snout. But I am going to add the bottom of the mouth to help it keep it structured. So stiff slabs means I can do this, which is really nice. See what I'm doing.
Jay, another question came through.
Yeah.
Is there an animal you've been interested in sculpting but have struggled with? Or have you found your way through on everything you've tried so far? Your work is incredible.
Thank you. That's a good question. I think oh, rhinos right now. Doing that rhino behind me took me quite a while to get to the head. It's still a little bit weirdly proportioned, but I mean, I don't know how many times people meet rhinos in their lives, so I feel like I can't really tell unless you're a rhino expert. But right now, the rhinoceros, but I'm like getting closer to getting it figured out. But typically, I've been able to sculpt the ones that I have tried. And I think a lot of it is that if it looks a little bit wrong, most people don't know. Which is part of the reason that I'm so terrified about sculpting people faces, is because if a person face looks a little wrong, we look at person faces all the time, so they just look a little wrong. But if like a wombat face looks a little bit wrong, then you don't really know it. So that's kind of how my approach to sculpting animals is. I mean, they're not exactly like, if you look at any of these creatures, like they're not exactly the shape of the animal head, but due to a few cues, like the rhino horn or the goat horns or anything like that, like we can kind of piece together what they look like, but they're all kind of my interpretation of that animal. But yeah, I'm trying to not sculpt goats and rabbits anymore because I've sculpted so many of them and I enjoy them so much, but definitely sculpted a lot. But, okay, so I don't know if you can see. Get this. probably a bit better. Okay, because I'm going to start carving its nose. I'll be able to see its nose. So like, as I'm carving, I'm constantly adjusting. Like I'm going to have to push its neck out a bit here. That's kind of its jawline. And then the nose, I'm going to carve in always the center line.
Another question is there an upcoming sculpture or animal you're most excited to tackle?
There's a few sculptures that I'm really excited to tackle. They're from the Trans Passions project, and I'm still speaking with the models to get specifics on some of the things that they've sent me, just like clarification stuff. And I'm not sure what animals they're going to be yet, because sculpting other people is challenging. I've mostly been sculpting myself because I'm the most convenient model that's there all the time. And so introducing other people to the project is like a really good challenge in just, yeah, incorporating other people into it, and they will have completely different animals that I maybe never even thought to sculpt. So I don't know what they are yet. But yeah, I'm excited to try them, whatever they are. Yes. Okay, so there's a nose. Can you see that with the angle? A little bit. And so I'm going to keep the top of the head open right up until the end, but I will put a small strip on top that I can add some ears. And typically while I'm sculpting small things that extend off of the head, like ears and horns, I will do them very last. But if I need to do them before I'm finished, they're always good to get to see where all the features sit on the head, because once you put the ears on, then you might notice, oh, the eyes are really high based on where the ears go. So sometimes it's good to put the ears on just like placeholder ears, which is what is on the rhino right now. It's just little squishy pieces of clay I put up there just so I could see where the rhino ears would sit. And then after I finish sculpting the piece, because their rhino ears are small and they will dry out way faster than everything else, I will chop them off and then make new, better ears after that. So right now, that's what I'm going to do. I don't think I'll have enough time to do the ears, but you kind of see how I get to that point and why I include them when I do. So put that on. That's obviously a really large head. So this is something called darting. You're cutting a slice off of something so that you can fold it down. And that means I cut a little pizza slice out of it, slip and score, and mash it together, and then it becomes the correct angle. And now while I hold it through the inside of the head, I'm going to push the clay down. Go, I can take my paddle a little bit more into shape. Okay, you can see you get the jawline there, jawline. And then if I wanted to do placeholder ears, I could just cut little triangles out. Oop.
I have another question. When is the next class you're teaching? Will you be at Baltimore Clayworks for a while?
That is a great question. I will be here until next summer, I think August 2024. And I'm going to be teaching a class here in the winter. I think it starts in January. Check back in about that one. I also was just scheduled to teach a workshop building human figures similar to the one in the middle there in DC, District Clay something, some District Clay something. I'm going to put it on my website as soon as that goes live, but that's going to be a big workshop day. So if you're out in DC, there's going to be that class available. But yes, at Baltimore Clayworks sometime this winter. we go. So there you go. So putting the ears on, I can see it's pretty weird proportions, but I did build this in 10 minutes. So do what you can. And are there any more questions? I can keep fiddling away at this, but it will, yeah, I mean, I can just show you how I would maybe fix this as I go because it's such strange proportions. Oh, if I wanted to add maybe like fur around the edges. I get a lot of questions about fur. So if I take chunks of clay, I like to do really fluffy cheeks. And so while I hold the inside of it, take big chunks and kind of layer them on top of it, the other ones. This clay is a little bit, the clay I'm holding is a little bit hard, so it's makes it a bit tricky. But when you're adding clay, you typically want to, or you're adding fur, you want to start with the furthest layer back, because as our hair is layered, you know, as the, like if the, yeah, hair is layered like shingles on a roof kind of a thing. So you want to start with the bottom ones and then layer on top of that, and then you get the really layered look of the fur. And so do some fur up here, down that side. All right. This is the strangest looking wolf. I'm carving its mouth.
Jay,
Yeah.
I know you're working really fast right now for this purpose, but could you share how long it took you to make the pieces behind you?
That is a great question. So the two figures with the dog is still solid, mostly because it's people faces, and I've been putting off finishing it because human faces terrify me to sculpt. And then these two, the two tall ones, are demo pieces for my class. So I've kind of been speed sculpting them along with my students, and then after class I come up and clean them up a little bit. So I guess almost a month for these two, and then probably I spent maybe like a week on that one, and then I wrapped it up and haven't touched it since then. So I build pretty quick, as you can see by all these pieces. I do build very fast, and then I put off making decisions about color for a while. So they ended up sitting on my shelf in progress for some time. And then when I need to take a break, I make pottery. So yeah, I definitely build fast, I've been told. Yeah, any more questions? I think we're about wrapping up in a minute or two.
I think
Yeah,
we might for one more question, and then we'll turn it over to Rebecca to close us out.
there is one more question that came through. Do you glaze or paint your people?
I really like doing atmospheric firing so that the kiln makes the decisions for the colors for me. But I use a wide variety of techniques, like the seagull with the rabbit that I showed you in the beginning. That piece has underglaze on it. And then after I fire it, I'm going to put some more layers on it. I'm going to use glaze for some of the pieces, but I don't typically use a ton of glazes. I also don't have like one thing that I stick to. I think I consistently do human bodies with animal heads, and then my surface finishing is wildly different every time.
What cone is your clay?
It's all cone 6 to 10. Good old wood fire kiln here. Makes that, yeah, I want to keep those options open. Yeah.
I think that does it. Oh, one more question came through. Are you wood firing everything? I think you just.
I'm hoping to wood fire some of the smaller pieces. Wood firing the bigger ones is, first of all, extremely expensive. Second of all, it's risky because the bigger the piece and the more things that stick off in different directions means the higher the temperature, the more it moves in the kiln. So for example, the chameleon where the tongue comes in and out, I don't think I'm going to high fire that one, because if the hand moves too much, which it might slump a little bit, then the tongue won't fit back in.
Same thing with another piece that needs to fit on top of something else. It won't fit on top of the figure standing on the soccer ball. It won't be able to stand on the soccer ball if I take it to cone 10 because it'll just move too much. Clay gets very liquidy that high up in the temperature ranges. So yeah, bigger stuff I would do lower fire.
Okay, thank you, Jay. That was fascinating. I really enjoyed the demo. Thank you for everyone tuning in, and stay tuned for November 16th when we'll have Wayman Scott. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming, everyone.